Hello everyone, today our group would like to deliver a presentation regarding the material of Introduction to Phonology. Let me introduce myself. My name is Anira Adivitria and my student number is 22. So let's begin with phonology. Phonology is the study of the sound systems of the language. Compared to phonetics, phonology focuses more narrowly on articulation and tackles the true mental reality behind the speech, while phonetics handles merely the concrete manifestations of the reality. What about phoneme? Phoneme is a unit of sound that distinguishes or differentiates one word from another in a particular language. For example, in the word moon and noon. These sounds of these words are pretty similar, but actually these words have different meanings. Because they have different sounds at the beginning, the sound and n. So and n are phonemes. What about allophones? Allophones are the predictable surface elements of the phonemes, or in other words, allophones are phonetically conditioned, predictable variants of the phonemes. Let's take the phoneme p as an example and see this graph. We can say that the phoneme p is realized as the allophone aspirated p, word initially like pin, also as the allophone unaspirated p in an initial cluster following us like spin, and lastly as the allophone diacritic p at the end of a word like chip. So, the phonological relationship between these sounds is that unaspirated p, aspirated p, and diacritic up are allophones of a single phoneme p. P sounds in English is represented abstractly by the alphabet P using slashes, while the sound is concretely pronounced as the unaspirated p, aspirated p, or diacritic up depending on where it occurs in a word, and it uses the brackets. Next, we would like to talk about the phonemic analysis that consists of 4 principles. The first one is contrastive distributions and minimal pairs, complementary distribution, free variations, and also pattern of congruity that will be explained by my friend. Thank you.
So here I would like to tell you about a minimal pair. The clearest sort of contrast is a minimal pair. That is a pair of words which differ by just one sound and which are different lexical items. By different lexical items mean distinct items of vocabulary regardless of their meaning. Example, in American English, car and automobile are two different lexical items, though they mean the same thing. While in British English, soccer and football are two different lexical items, so again, their meanings are the same. If we compare bad and mad, we know as speaker of English that they have two different lexical items, and we can see that they differ from each sound, the initial b and Therefore, we can say that b and are contrast. On the basis of the contrast, we can suggest that b and are allophones of separate phonemes. Then we compare the initial fat, we see that there is a contrast between b and Since fat, bad, and mad are different lexical items, and since each differs from the other by one and only sound, therefore we can say that f, b, and are each allophones of separate phonemes.
Hello, my name is Satrianur Firmanda and my student number is 27. After the explanation about minimal pairs, we can conclude that minimal pairs rest on contrastive distribution. For example, in the word fat, bad, and mad. As we see with the initial consonants in the word fat, bad, and mad, which contrast with each other, And we can see this contrast as a commutation test, or it is just a substitution of one sound for different lexical items. Contrastive distribution can show a contrast anywhere in the word. However, it's not just initially. For example, wrapped and rum or robbed and roamed. This means that wrapped and rum or robbed and roamed are just as much minimal pairs as bet and met, since in each case the sounds in question appear in identical phonetics environments and constitutes the only phonetics difference between the two lexical items. Contrastive distribution occurs when there are two sounds replacing one another in the same phonological environment but affected in a change of meaning. If a sound is in contrastive distribution, the sound considered a phoneme in that language. Two sounds are in contrastive distribution when they can both appear in the same phonetic environment. For example, in English, the sound up and sound up can both occur in the initial of a word, as in the word pet and bet. Why? Because the sound up and up in this example are exactly the same. It is placed in identical contexts, but their phoneme and meaning are different. I think that's all about contrastive distribution. I hope you understand.
My name is Nabila Madia and my student number is 23. I would like to explain about complementary distribution. So, what is complementary distribution? Complementary distribution is the distribution of phones in their respective phonetic environments in which one phone never appears in the same phonetic context as the other. The environment where we find one of the P sounds. We will not find any of the other P sounds. We find aspirated P sound at the beginnings of words but not in the cluster following as. We find diacritic P sounds at the ends of words but not words initially. Note that we do find contrast between members of different groups of sounds. Aspirated P sounds and aspirated K sounds contrast as do unaspirated P and unaspirated K and so on, but we find no contrast among the members of the group. Above, we revert to allophones as being predictable sounds. Taking the P sounds again, we know that we find aspirated P sounds word initially and unaspirated P in cluster following as. Therefore, if we know that we are dealing with a P sound that is one of the set of allophones of P, we can predict which P sound will be pronounced in which context. As an example, take the word of English which is missing the initial consonant, like this. Without knowing what word it is supposed to be, we cannot guess whether the initial consonant should be M or B or aspirated P sounds or L or G or a number of other consonants. However, if we are told that the blank must be filled in with a P sounds, we know which one it will be. Aspirated P sounds. The phoneme is unpredictable, but the allophone, once we know which phoneme is involved, is predictable.
Then we talk about free variation. While the distinction between allophones and phonemes is quite clear-cut, there are some phenomena which can obscure the identification of phonemes. One of these is called free variation. In our discussion of the T sound have indicated in a number of places that a voiceless stop may be unreleased at the end of the word. Example, mat. But we have also indicated in passing the T has other relations at the end of the word, including an aspirated release mat and glottal stop mat. Given that these are three phonetically different speech sounds in the same position, one might suggest that they are related to different phonemes. But note that these do not contrast. Met, met, and me are three different pronunciations of the same lexical item. Since they involve the same lexical item, we can say that this three sound is a free variation, since there are no minimal pairs. This maintain that they are allophones of single phoneme.
And then the last topic that we are going to discuss is about pattern congruity. The systematic organization of the set of phonemes and their distribution is called by pattern congruity. You have to choose an allophones depends on the overall patterns found in the phonological system. And what is the phonological system? These are: unobstruent clusters have uniform voicing in English. All members of the cluster are voiceless that followed by FT, such in daft, voiceless followed by PT, as in apt, voiceless followed by PS, as in apps, and followed by KST, as in next, voiceless followed by SP, as in asp. There are also voice that followed by PD, as in whooped, voice followed by DZ, as in ads, voice followed by ZT, as in best, and voice followed by VZ, as in leaves. The last is mixed voice clusters of voiceless that followed by voice or voice followed by voiceless, as in the word that followed by FT, PT, PZ, and TS. They are ill-formed phonemically, or in another word, don't occur phonetically. One thing that you are also have to know is about the stop phoneme preceded by S. There are two kinds. The first one is voice phoneme in the word spin. If spin is some kind of spin that allows their mixed voice clusters, as in SP, spin, SD, stick, or SG, skate. And then the second one is voiceless phoneme. If spin underlyingly spin, their cluster under consideration will be SP, spin, ST, stick, SK, skate, and those no longer counterexample to the cluster voice agreement statement. I think that's all from us. If you have any questions, let's discuss it in the discussion forum. Thanks for watching, and wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.